Hi, so my name is Hetal Ascher. I live and work in Beijing at Dulwich College, Beijing, um, which is an international school, but we do primarily serve ESL students. So yeah, let's get started. So today's session is all about practical activities that I hope you'll be able to walk away with and find something that you can use in your own classroom. So the three things that we'll be doing today is collaborative quiz making, radio dramas, and then simple and easy games. And I really do mean games with the quotation marks. When we started online teaching back in February, I quickly realized that introducing like new flashy programs and new flashy activities was really hard because it's really hard to teach kids to do something, to learn a new program without the teacher's help there. So my activities here are all using things that students likely already know how to use, so that it's simple on you and simple for the students and focused on the learning rather than the technology piece. So I'm sure everybody knows of these quiz apps like Kahoot and Quizzes. Quizalize is a bit new, but the first thing is a collaborative quiz, which as far as I know, there aren't many quizzes out there where you can actually get students to work on the same quiz together. So I found one way to work around that. One way to work around that, which is if you go, if you go to quizzes, you can click import from spreadsheet here. And then here you download the template. So I don't know if you guys are quizzes users or Kahoot users. Maybe do you guys want to say in the group chat if you guys prefer quizzes or Kahoot? Or you can unmute yourself and say something. Oops. Clickers, okay. More Kahoot. All right, well, if you haven't used either, then I really do recommend quizzes. My personal experience is that quizzes, it's a bit easier to use than Kahoot, and it is so much easier for online teaching because students go at their own pace and it's not a race. So if you have students with slow internet, they can still participate. Yeah, it's much better for online learning. Kahoot's fine. The kids really seem to like Kahoot in class. So if you download this template, then what you can do, you end up with a spreadsheet like this, and it does take a little bit of time for you to get used to. But what you do is you type the questions in here on the left side. And here's an example for you where it says, which of these is the largest planet in the solar system? So you can type in a question, like maybe like a simple vocabulary question, like a definition. Here, you have a drop-down menu, so there are some different types of questions you can do, like multiple choice or multiple answer, fill in the blank. Here, you can add your correct answer and incorrect answers. And then at on the right side, you can type like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for which one is the correct answer. So what I like to do is I download this template and then I add in on the left side, I group my students. So in my class, actually, I have group numbers. So if you have group numbers, like you have a group 1 or a group 2, that does make it easier, but you can also put names. So here, this group will do questions 4 through 9. And then that group can work together to come up with questions for whatever you're teaching. And if you put this document into like a Google, if you have a shared Google area, or like I use Teams, so we just put it into files or SharePoint. But if you have something like that, you just share it with the students and they can add their questions here. It does take a lot of time at first because the students, it just takes them a while. I think it's also a different type of thinking for the students to think about writing the questions and right and wrong answers. Yeah, so just divide the students up into groups by the questions, and then I usually like to add a few extra at the end, so that if you have some overachievers that finish fast, you can give them some extra slots and they can add some fun trivia questions for your class. In my PowerPoint, I've also included several slides that you can just take and adjust slightly and use in your own classroom. So this is one of those slides. This is actually for students. So what I would say to the students is go to the Google Sheets page in our class folder. You can adjust that for your own situation. With your assigned group, create quiz questions together to review our vocabulary list, and only write questions where it says your name. Otherwise, they end up erasing each other's questions, which happens, but actually they wind up being able to sort it out themselves often. So usually the way you want to do this is an activity for one class and you want to end it, maybe give yourself a day or two, because it does take a little bit of time. You have to look at their spreadsheet and make sure that they haven't written anything inappropriate, and sometimes they add areas that shouldn't be added. So sometimes you do have to clean it up a little bit. But once you have their spreadsheet, you just go back exactly the same. You go import from spreadsheet, and then you just drag and drop the file, and then it turns it into a quiz, which then you can easily share with the students and use just like Kahoot. And Kahoot actually has this option too. The only difference is you can download the template before you make the quiz, not after.
We had a question in the chat.
Okay.
Doing it this way, doesn't that mean that the students will see each other's answers?
Oh, yes, great question. So I found that this really doesn't matter. In my experience, one student will always notice, but they would have to memorize the actual answers, not just the number, first of all, because quizzes automatically mixes up the multiple choice. And if you take down the document, so like the way I've always ended up doing this is I have the spreadsheet that the students have made, and then I use it maybe 2 or 3 days later. So if you just take away access, in 2 days, they'll forget. Maybe your students are a bit more motivated to memorize answers than mine, but I really haven't had the problem. Or if it's, for example, vocabulary with definitions, maybe it's not such a bad thing if they go and try to memorize the answers. Yeah, so I've just found that it hasn't been an issue, but you can give it a try and see if it works for your students or not. All right, so now let's take a few minutes and try it. So go ahead and go to quizzes or Kahoot. I can add the link here, or if you just Google quizzes or Google Kahoot, you can find it. It's just quizzes.com. And go ahead and give it a try. And if you want to talk or ask questions, please feel free. It's a workshop, so if we were in Korea together, I'd be walking around chatting with you guys as you do this. So feel free to talk.
I just have a question about quizzes. So one of the things I like about Kahoot is that students don't have to make like an ID and a password. They can just join with a code. Does quizzes work in kind of the same way?
Yeah, they don't have to create an account in quizzes either.
Okay, great.
Oh, thanks, Brian, for the link. The thing that's fun about quizzes is they have power-ups, which when I played, I found them a little bit annoying, but the kids seem to really like them. Like they can get a power-up that gives them extra time or gives them like 50-50, or gives them a second chance at a question they got wrong, which they seem to really, really like. The other feature, if you haven't used quizzes before, I really recommend, there's a feature where you can teleport questions from different quizzes. So let's say you're teaching the novel Holes. If you just search Holes, you'll see all the quizzes that other people have done on that, and you can pick and choose which questions you want to just add to your quiz from other people's quizzes. So it does really go much faster than Kahoot. All right, are we okay to continue?
Oh, there was one question in the chat.
Oh, yes, you can, Daniela, you can use pictures in quizzes, and I think you can in Kahoot too. Yeah, it's you can add them when you create the question itself, or if you do the download template, you can copy paste the link to the picture into the template. But I think it's easier to just add it in quizzes once you have it uploaded. Yeah, and just a couple little tips. Using the template is easier even if you just want to make a quiz for yourself, because especially with Kahoot, if you use Kahoot, because you can copy paste answers. So in Kahoot, let's say you write 5 possible answers, they're all words from your vocabulary list, and you end up having to type those same words over and over. But if you use the Excel spreadsheet, you can just copy paste the row and change which one's correct. You can also adapt this activity, like you can have some students work in pairs and some work individually, and just assign a few slots to one student if you have different needs in your classroom or even different preferences. All right, so the second activity that I've done that I found really successful is radio dramas. And the point of it is to get your students working together and practicing speaking. If you're working online, you need a way for students to group record, like a Zoom, or I always use Teams. And if you're in person, you just need one student with a laptop or phone. And again, so in my PowerPoint, I have some slides you can just take. This is one of them. So my students had not only not heard of radio dramas, which I expected, a lot of them had a hard time imagining what life would be like without a TV or a phone. So that was kind of funny to talk through. But basically, the idea of radio dramas is that it's a voice-only drama, which I found to be hugely effective for my high schoolers because they don't like turning on the video camera and they especially don't like recording with their video camera turned on, but they were okay with the audio. The audio didn't seem to bother them too much. So here's like an outline of a plan you can give to the students: a setting, a problem, and then the terms. So I did this during my travel unit. Travel and transportation was a predetermined unit. So here's mine. So I asked the students to decide in small groups where their group was going to travel. And then I have an example, like our group will go to the Great Wall of China, a problem the group will face, and I said a thunderstorm that starts while they're on the wall, and then the vocabulary that they'll use from the unit, which was from a vocab list that I already had given the students. And you can adjust this to however you like. So at this point, I also talked to the students about how people used to do radio dramas using like everyday objects to make noise, to create a kind of interesting audio, which got it kind of fun, waving around a sheet of paper for thunder, that kind of thing. And then this is another slide you can use with your own students if you like. Have them all write a script in their small groups with a shared Google Doc. I always say each student has to type their own lines, even if some other student is giving them ideas, and then they can think about sound effects as well. And then here's another slide of directions. So I have them practice the radio drama a few times, then record it with just audio. But if you want to make them do video, that's totally up to you. And then have them listen to their own drama and then submit it. And then some extension activities. You can have students do listening comprehension questions, write their own. You can just spend time as a class listening to the dramas. My class, I was surprised for one at how long it took, but they really, really got into it, which I found it's hard to make. A lot of times the activities we do in class that we transfer to online learning, they just don't really sync the same way. They don't land quite in the same way, but this one really did. And I actually think a lot of it is that the no video part. It takes away a lot of their anxiety. Yeah. And, you can always listen to a radio drama at the end. If you go on YouTube, there are radio dramas that you can find. So for this one, I don't have anything for us to do, but at the end, I have some discussion time. So at the end, we can talk about implementation if you guys have questions. Or you can ask now in the chat. And the third activity is post and reply games. And a lot of these will be things you've already seen before, but it's just a way to get students interacting just a little bit. And all you need is something like Teams or Moodle or Seesaw, where students can post and reply. So if you go on the Padlet now, we can all play a little bit. And I use these as warm-up activities for my asynchronous lessons. And I always say, if you're stuck, that they can tag me. Thanks, Brian. And Brian's posted the link to the Padlet. And if you have an idea for a game that's not already on here that you've used, feel free to post it, and then we can play your game as well. Yeah, Lisa, that's a good question. How did I introduce the radio drama activity? Actually, I did this radio drama activity back in March of last year, when it was just like, surprise, you're teaching online. I did have a rubric. I will find it for you and put it in my Google folder that I'm sharing with everyone. So I think it might not be very good because, again, it was from last year in March, but I'm sure you can adjust it. I think, Lisa, my rubric was just really simple. It was just, did you use the vocabulary and the speaking rubric that we normally use, where we say something about how much we can understand. So one thing that I actually really liked about these post and reply games is that sometimes when you play these same games in class, it can be a bit hard for students that are slower to come up with ideas. And they get a bit like anxious when they're put on the spot, and doing it like this gives them as much time as they need, and they can decide when they'll play. So I actually think that I might continue this on our class Teams page, even when we go back to in-person classes. Just because it's just a little bit of engagement that keeps them thinking. Oh, I haven't shared my Google Drive folder yet. Hold on, I can do that now. So I've just shared my Google Drive folder, and that has the PowerPoint that you can have. It also has a quizzes template already downloaded in case you want the one I showed you today. It also has a Word document with the links to Padlet and a few extra resources. Thanks so much for playing the games. I'm having fun watching everybody and seeing these chains here. I think that now, I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry. All right, now let's have small group discussions. Here are the 2 discussion questions. So what have you seen today that you'd like to use in your own classroom, and what adaptations would you need to make for your own context? So let's go to breakout rooms for this. I've posted the questions in the group chat so you can see the questions, and let's do 3 breakout rooms. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes in your breakout rooms, and then we'll come together as a big group to wrap up. Brian, I'm gonna just pop into the breakout rooms
Oh, sure.
to
How was everything going in the breakout rooms?
Hi, Brian. I have everybody coming back now.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I had a chance to pop into some of your breakout rooms, and it was nice hearing your conversations. I appreciate it. I'm glad that some of you found ways that you can use these things in your classrooms. That was my hope with this presentation. Um, all right. So the last thing really is just make sure I've given you the resources link. I've given you that Google Drive folder link with the PowerPoint and the links. I'll see if I can find that rubric that I used for the radio dramas and put that in there too later today. Here's my email, or you can contact me on the CoTESOL Discord as well. And then I'd really love your feedback. So if you have any feedback for me, suggestions for next time, the link is in the Zoom chat, but it's totally optional. It's just if you want to give me feedback, which I really appreciate. So are there any questions for me or the group in general?
I have a question. Thank you so much for presenting, and it's really useful tips. I was wondering about the quizzes, and so, like, what do you think is the difference between the paid version and just from your experience? Is it worth it, in your opinion?
I have not used the paid version.
Okay.
To me, I usually find that like I don't use quizzes enough to want to try paying for it. I think that they have some extra features, like some lesson features that I haven't really looked into. Has anybody else here used the paid quizzes? Yeah, sorry, Nehemiah.
All right, no problem. Yeah. Thank you, though.
Just like last spring we all had the paid version of Kahoot for free. And I don't know which of the features are the same, but you could have things like different question types, like not only multiple choice questions, they could type the answer, or I don't remember all of the things, but I mean, some of those features were really cool, and they said, build your Kahoots, and then when they shut that off, those Kahoots didn't work anymore. But at least in Kahoot, one of the differences in paid is that you have different activity types, not just multiple choice questions.
Oh, that's interesting. So in quizzes, you can do multiple question types for free. I didn't realize I'd come into here promoting quizzes so hardcore, but I really do think it's better than Kahoot. That's another reason it's better than Kahoot. Yeah, it's really too bad that they once you turn off the free subscription that they gave to everyone, and you can't use your work. Any other questions? Yes, quizzes does play funky background music. I don't know if it's better than the music from Kahoot, to be honest with you. But you can turn off, when you do online learning, you can turn off your end and the kids can have their music on, so you don't have to listen to it. If students can't use their phones in class. Well, Well, so the radio dramas, that activity, actually, I did say you can make it if you just have one phone, but actually, if you have the whole class with you, you can do it without a phone. Like I said, I thought maybe a fake microphone would be just as effective. And then they perform it in front of the class. So the radio drama one is flexible. Quizzes might be really too hard to do without a phone. And those other games might be, I mean, you could get a game going on your whiteboard, like if you just, some of the chain games, you could just leave it up there and the kids could add to it when they think of something. All right, well, we have about 2 minutes left, so I'll end it here, but I'll stick around for the last 2 minutes if anybody wants to stick around and chat. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to me on email or Discord. Thank you all very much for coming. See you around at the rest of the conference.
I'd like to say thank you for a really fantastic workshop with so many resources and ideas. Just as a reminder to everybody, if you go to the conference Discord, there's a channel called Presentation Conversation Overflow. So if you'd like to continue discussing this session or any other session, you can go there to talk. And could I ask everybody to unmute so that we can give some applause to Hetal for such a great workshop?